I'm Todd Jaderborg with Odins Wolf Survival. Today, I'm going to be starting a pine needle cup where I'm gonna got some pine needles. They're white pine from up at my mom's house. I've had them soaking for a while, so they're pliable. And this is basically how I start them. A lot of people will cut these ends off. I don't on these smaller ones, just because it makes it easier to bunch them and get it started. You'll have the ends, the little dark ends in there, but they're rather small, and it doesn't really bother me. I think it looks kind of cool. Adds a little texture to it. Everybody's different on how they like to do it. But on the pine needles, if you use them green, they shrink, and then your basket or your weave will loosen up. So they're not as dry as they should be, probably. Of course, I wasn't picky because around where I'm at, we don't have a lot of pine trees, and I was up at Mom's for Christmas, so I got a bunch of them. That's the start of... I'm making a cup. I did a basket at first, just to make sure everything would work right. So I want to do a cup, and I'm eventually going to line it with beeswax so I can use it. But what I sew it together with is artificial sinew, which this lot I got from, this is what it is, the Real Tree brand, or Real Leather brand. Got it from Hobby Lobby. You can get it in any color you like. Since these pine needles are kind of light, I like the dark just because it makes it kind of pop. And I bundle up a bunch of them. That's usually about somewhere in there is about how big I run them around. And I started out by tying it and then wrapping. And if you slide your needle through, it'll keep it from spinning around and around and around. I wrap a good little bit at the end just to help hold things together. I pull it through, and all this will pretty much tie up into the center of the bottom of the cup. Then I got this set up with 2 needles. This will be my other one. Okay, and what I do usually is you can split the sinew up. This is already split up, but it'll split up into 3 or 5 pieces, I think, depending on which type you get. So I've split this up already. We wrap it around that end where it's tight. And you start out sewing it around, and I go up through. This is always the awkward bit at first. Okay, there's one. And we pull it around again. And you want these really wet and soaked good. Otherwise they will break. They're pretty pliable once you soak them out. And this I haven't done this a whole great lot. I know how to do it. Come up through the back side where you sewn. Pull that through, pull it around again. This usually takes like 3 hands. Okay. And if you pull it up through the other side, it won't want to kind of back out on you. Once you get the first wrap through done, the first wrap around, it goes a lot easier. Not that, because you get a base going, and then you can work off of it a lot easier. Usually the start of anything along this line is kind of the pain in the butt. You can push it through, pull your pine needles through, and it won't exactly, at least in my experience, which isn't a great deal on this, it doesn't always come out round right initially. Okay, now we're in the middle. You go around again and up through the middle. And pull that around. Over and up through. And they're kind of a slickened mess. When I started the basket, instead of coming up round when I first started, it was triangular, and that looks like the way this one's going to come out, but it was also a round base, but it worked. It wasn't triangular once I got it stepping up out a couple of notches. Okay, now as it thins out, you'll take other pine needles. Once you get it out so far, a round or two around, so long as they aren't really crispy ones, you don't need to have them completely soaked in water. At least I didn't on the basket. Once I got it out, they've worked in just fine. They don't, I haven't really played with really dry ones, because it's been raining and everything up there, so they were a little damp anyway. The only problem is once they get like that, you want to keep them from molding when you're storing them. Okay, now we're getting into where it's starting to pull around, and they're starting to. You want to keep your bundle about the same thickness, which is the trick. Some people use a straw. I didn't. I just would go by eye. And when I start adding them in, come over and you come up. I come up behind some of the other laces so they stay in at first. It's kind of a, I don't know, for me it's a by the eye thing. Once you got them, your loop's getting ready to be pulled down. Add them in. Make sure the loop is ahead of the little nodules right there, and pull it tight. And then you build your bundle out. And as you add more in, it'll keep going out. Okay, we'll roll it around here. Take another bite, roll it up, pull the needle up through. And you got your loose loop. Slide another pine needle or two up, bundle of pine needles up in there. pull it tight. Come around, up through the bottom. I don't worry about sewing patterns on this or making them look pretty. I'm trying to make functional. I'm not good enough at this to make pretty ones, but I can do this well enough that I can actually make something that's usable, which is the goal behind all this. That's the start of my cup. And as I get it out a little further, it'll smooth out, and I'll bring it out probably about that big around and then start rolling it up. But that's the beginning. This is the base to my pine needle cup that I'm making. I got the base as big as I want it, so right about here I started rolling it up on top of the outside weaver that I've sewn in. Once you get it up on top, you'll run it all the way around and just keep going up, around, flaring it out slightly as you go up. When you're sewing these in, I'll come in below the second one down, wrap it around the top and back through and pull it tight. Then you add your pine needles in each one of these as you sew to keep an approximately the same thickness. The needle I'm using is one of the blunt tip large eye needles. You don't want a point on here, otherwise you'll start piercing the needles, and as you're sewing through, if you wiggle the needle around slightly, it'll go past the pine needles as you're pushing instead of breaking them off and pushing through. This is where I'm at so far. I'm Todd Jaderborg with Odins Wolf Survival. I have the pine needle cup that I've been working on that had got short-circuited for a little bit. Virtually done. I haven't waterproofed it yet, but this is to the point where it's done. It was made with pine needles from up at my mom's house in northern Missouri and artificial sinew sewn together with embroidery needles. It's not a huge thing, but it'll hold a fair little amount. I'm going to trim up the cords on the inside and waterproof the inside and up over the lip with beeswax. But this is the cup done.